Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the start of, well, not technically the start of week 9. That was Thursday, but uh, we're going to go over some week 9 football. I must apologize first. I did not make a recap of Monday Night Football, and I did not make a video ahead of Thursday Night Football. Didn't really talk about the trade deadline. Just really busy with some things going on, taking care of things around my house, working on things, life, it happens. So, but I'm going to get back on track, going to get back to making some videos. And so the Monday Night Football game, it was, I know Detroit was in it. I forget who they played. They played the Raiders. They thoroughly manhandled the Raiders. Uh, Gibbs, Detroit's rookie running back, had more total yards than the entire Las Vegas offense. Jimmy Garoppolo missed Davante Adams on, essentially he missed out on about 150 to 200 yards worth of yards and 2 touchdowns where Adams was just wide open and Jimmy G missed him. That's unfortunate for Davante. I'm a big fan of Davante Adams. He was in Green Bay for a lot of years. I've watched him play. I know what kind of player he is, and I hate that for him. I was thankful for it Monday night though, because in fantasy I was playing a guy that had Adams, and I had Jared Goff and Detroit's kicker. And starting the night, I was down by 20 points, and I come back and won by 5. So it worked out for me fantasy wise, but um, again, I'm disappointed. I hate that for Adams. And the trade deadline came and went. We saw a lot of decent moves made. We saw a move that wasn't really at the trade deadline. We saw Buffalo sign Leonard Fournette, and there's a picture going around social media of Fournette, and his legs look massive. He looks like he is in great shape, so we'll see what kind of benefit he can be to Buffalo's offense. If he can establish some consistency in the running game, that will make Buffalo's offense extremely dangerous. Buffalo also made a trade with Green Bay at the trade deadline for Rasul Douglas. It's a move that I don't understand on Green Bay's part. Stokes and Darnell Savage are both on IR, so they're out for at least 3 more weeks, I believe. And Rasul was feeling a big need in the secondary, and you trade him away. I mean, you got a third round pick for him, so it's a decent compensation. And but he wasn't on a super expensive contract. I think he was on like a 3 year seven or like a 3 year $21 million deal. So he wasn't getting paid a lot. And everyone that's played with him or coached him have said how they've stated how smart of a player he is. He is he understands concepts, he understands coverages, he's extremely intelligent, and he's been a decent playmaker for Green Bay. So him going to Buffalo, that he absolutely feels a need at corner for them, and it's a great trade by Buffalo. 100% great trade by Buffalo. I don't understand the trade on Green Bay's part, and that's a little bit frustrating for me as a fan, but it is what it is. Some other moves. Detroit traded for uh, what's his name? Peoples Jones from Cleveland, wide receiver, kind of gives them some more speed in the wide receiver area. Kind of gives them adds to their potency on offense. Their offense has been really good this year, so that helps Detroit get a little bit better. We know that Philly made a trade for, I believe, a safety from Tennessee last week, a week before, a little bit, quite a bit ahead of the deadline. Towards the deadline, Chicago traded for Montez Sweat. Um, they believe they can get him signed. They gave a second to Washington for that. And Chicago is on pace to have the most cap room, so they believe they can get him re-signed. San Francisco traded for Chase Young. That's a pair of Chase Young and Nick Bosa. They played together at Ohio State, so that's a reunion. San Francisco obviously thinks that's going to help them reestablish their pass rush, which I'm sure it'll help, but I don't think I think they're their pass rush hasn't been getting home this year, but I think that's more of a defensive coordinator and a play calling issue than it is a personnel issue. And to touch on that, their defensive coordinator he has a DB background, so you can tell by his play calling and how he's been playing and having the defense play, he's more worried about coverage than pressuring the quarterback. Whereas before you had DeMeco Ryans, who had a linebacker background, a front seven background. Before that, you had Robert Saleh, front seven background, and those guys understand the importance of rushing the passer. So, and last week, San Francisco rushed the passer like at a 15% rate, which is like lower than I think the lowest team in the year over the course of the season has averaged at least 19% pressure rate, and that's defined as sending five guys at the quarterback, and they did it at a 15% rate last week. So you can tell they're not trying to rush the passer. So I think that's a play calling issue. But obviously, adding Chase Young, he probably won't see a lot of major double coverage because Bosa is going to get that, and it could allow him to have some very productive numbers. And I know there were various other moves, but I think those are the most noteworthy moves at the deadline. Um, so heating on the Thursday night football game, Will Levis was playing at quarterback, his second start for Ryan Tannehill, who was hurt, and he played pretty well against Pittsburgh. I had Pittsburgh picked to win. I didn't. I'm not putting them down just because they won. I was going to pick Pittsburgh because I did not trust a rookie quarterback against their defense, and Will Levis played very well, had them in a position to try to win. He did throw a pick to end the game. He's a rookie. He's learning. He'll get there. Mistakes will be made, but he definitely showed that he could be the future. I feel like he fits the style of the team. I feel like he fits in very well. And yet again, Pittsburgh did win, so they do have a winning record. And yet again, they have been outgained in every single game this year in yards. Tennessee outgained them in yards, but Pittsburgh still found a way to win. They can only maintain this for so long. Um, I'm surprised they've maintained it as long as they have, but obviously they're going to have to play Cincinnati, Baltimore, and they're going to play some very good teams down the stretch. And if you're not outgaining these teams, if they're outgaining you, chances are you're not going to be winning games. On the subject of Pittsburgh, had a conversation the other day of if TJ was better than JJ Watt, and in my opinion, and I mean my answer, I didn't say that TJ was necessarily better, but I did say that TJ is much more versatile. He's a linebacker and not just a defensive end. He can drop into coverage, um, as well as be a very efficient pass rusher. And I didn't I didn't outright say TJ was better, but what I did say was if I were building a defense around one of those two guys, I would want to build a defense around TJ. He gets interceptions, he forces fumbles, he gets sacks, he does a lot. So my answer would be TJ Watt on who I would want on my team more than JJ. And that's not a knock at JJ. He was a great player, very disruptive, very great career, but I would take TJ myself. In fact, I was, as the year TJ was drafted, it was coming down to getting close to Green Bay picking, and I knew we had a history of picking defensive players, and I wanted TJ Watt so bad. I wanted him so bad, and Pittsburgh took him right before Green Bay got a chance, and I was a little bit devastated because I really wanted TJ Watt, and I think that could have made a world of difference for our team. Um, and I also saw some stats where through their first 7 seasons, the only two players with seven interceptions and 70 sacks are TJ Watt and Lawrence Taylor, the great Lawrence Taylor. And the actual stat is at TJ is halfway through his seventh season and has the same amount of interceptions, but has 85 sacks. compared to the 70 that Lawrence Taylor had at the end of his 7th season. So you're looking at TJ potentially having 20 to 25 more sacks than what Lawrence Taylor did through his first 7 seasons. Obviously, seasons have more games now than what they did then, but still great numbers and great company and great to be mentioned in conversations with those great players. Um, so, anyway, back to NFL Sunday games. We actually have the Kansas City Miami game that kicked off about 15 minutes ago. I have not watched it. I do not know the score, but my pick is Kansas City after getting beat by Denver last week. Mahomes was sick on IVs the night before, had the flu. They say he's much better now. And I think after a loss like that, it's very humbling. I think that really forces the offensive minds to get a better game plan together. And it was very uncharacteristic. We had a lot of drop passes by receivers. We had just a sloppy game overall by Kansas City, and that, to me, I feel like that's partially because if your leader, who is Patrick Mahomes, if he's sluggish, if he's sick, he's not playing his best, and your offense is going to do one of two things. They're either going to rally and help him, or they're going to mimic him and not play their best. And in this case, they mimicked him and didn't play their best. So ultimately, I think they bounce back. I think they beat Miami. I think Miami's a good team. They have a strong offense, but we've seen them against a couple good teams this year, and they have not looked good, and they've got lost by double digits each time. Essentially, could have and should have lost by 20 in both games, 20 plus. One of them they did, one they didn't, but I just don't see Miami beating Kansas City. The noon slate of games, we have Green Bay hosting the LA Rams. Matthew Stafford may not play. It's reported that Green Bay decided to change things up, take a different approach to preparations this week. And I think that's a really good idea. And I think so. Aaron Rodgers did not play particularly well last year for Green Bay. He didn't really trust the young receivers. He didn't have Devontae. He, I mean, he didn't have a bad season by any means, but compared to his normal seasons, he had a bad season. He had a down year compared to his normal numbers. And so Jordan Love obviously is not playing as good as Rodgers did last year, but he's not playing much worse. And for me, going back and watching the games a second time, um, Love is not making bad decisions for the most part. Like, yeah, some of he has made mistakes. Some of his interceptions could have been avoided. His interception last week was just a great play by the defense. One of my cats just did something. Um, but there really wasn't overall. I think you can look at the whole game last week and maybe 3 or 4 passes he actually made bad throws or made the wrong decision. He's making the right decisions, but I think the play calling and the development of the wide receivers is not putting him in a position where he can succeed. We're not running the ball enough. Like, just I've harped on the play calling multiple times, and it's still an issue. But I think that's where they're missing Aaron Rodgers the most. I don't think they're missing him on the field, but in the meeting rooms, Monday through Friday, and game preparation wise, his approach to game preparation, his film study, his insight. I think that's where they're missing Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they have that extremely intelligent offensive mind and all the experience he had to help tweak the game plan in a way to put them in the best situation to succeed. So, changing up the game preparation and the week leading up to the game, I think that's a good move. Obviously, like I said, the play calling, you've got to get Love in a rhythm early. You've got to get the running game going. You've got to use some play action. You've got to get him on some rollouts, get him moving around the pocket, outside the pocket. You've got to get him in the rhythm. And it helps the whole offense get in a rhythm. And defensively, I've I've been done with Joe Barry. I've said it repeatedly. Like, our defense is not good. Matthew Stafford not playing today. Puka is hurt. He may not play. So if our defense can't play good today, then I mean, if we lose this game and fall to 2-6, our season's done. I mean, at 2-5, our season is practically done. I really don't see us clawing our way back in the playoffs at this point without a dramatic turnaround. And we got Detroit again in a couple weeks, so we definitely need this win just to stay afloat, and we really need like some moral victories. So, and this could be one. But I do have Green Bay picked to win. It's at home. Stafford's hurt or may not play. If he does play, he's playing hurt. Different approach to the game preparation. I feel like it could make a difference. So I think Green Bay will win today. Next, we have Minnesota going on the road to Atlanta. Kirk Cousins obviously out for the season. Not 100% sure uh, who. I know Minnesota traded for Josh Dobbs at the trade deadline. I do not believe he is starting today. I think they want him to have more time before he starts playing. But I just Atlanta's playing Taylor Heineke, I believe, over Ritter, and I think just with familiarity and just overall playmakers, I think Atlanta will win that game. Not a whole lot to not a whole lot to say about that game, but I think Atlanta wins. Cleveland is hosting Arizona. Cleveland with a great defense. Arizona, obviously, with a different quarterback starting today, with Josh Dobbs being traded. I got Cleveland winning that game. New England is hosting Washington. New England is the favorite, but I think Washington will win. Washington played really well against Philadelphia last week, scored a lot of points. Their offense looked good. And Sam Howell has been a top five, he's actually been top three fantasy quarterback since week 4, I believe. And I think he will have a good game today. I think Washington wins. Chicago on the road in New Orleans. I think New Orleans wins. They are the better team, better offense, better defense. Chicago's struggling. I think New Orleans wins that game. Seattle on the road against Baltimore. Baltimore has played really good the last 2 weeks, have played really complete games. I think they're the better team overall. Seattle's played really well the last few weeks, but I think Baltimore's a better team, and I think they will win. Tampa Bay on the road in Houston. Houston is the favorite, but I think Tampa Bay wins this game. Um, I just feel like there's too many weapons on the offense for Tampa Bay, and I feel like Tampa Bay will pull that out. I feel like Baker Mayfield can. He's shown that he can play well, and I think they will play better. I think Tampa Bay is going to win. It's just a gut feeling on that more than anything. Uh, Indianapolis on the road against Carolina. I think Indy wins. Carolina is a terrible team. They're in a rebuild. They're not doing well. I think Indy wins. Two great running backs. Gardner Minshew has more playing time, so I feel like they're the better team and will win. We have the New York Giants on the road against Las Vegas Raiders. They fired their head coach and GM Tuesday or Wednesday after the trade deadline because they did not trade Adams. The Jets reached out to try to trade for Adams. Adams really made it. He really wanted out, but they didn't let him out, so they made the moves to correct it, and so I should have covered that a while ago. But yeah, they moved on from Josh McDaniels, and with a interim head coach, I feel like there's a new mentality around the team, a lot of positivity around the team. A lot of the players seem positive about the change. So with a coaching change and everyone wanting to go out and put it out on the line for the coach, everybody buying into what the coach is saying because I believe it's as I know Antonio Pierce maybe I believe his last name's Pierce. He was on one of the Giants Super Bowl winning teams against the Patriots. I believe the 07 team, and I believe everyone's buying into his message and his mentality, and I believe they want to go out and play hard for him. So I think Vegas will pull out the win today. Game of the day, really. We have Dallas on the road against Philadelphia, two very good teams, obviously top of their division, two of the top teams in the NFC. Ultimately, I think Philly is able to play different styles of football, whereas Dallas is not really very good at different styles of football. Philly has had games where they've ran the ball well. They've had games where they've thrown the ball well. They've had games where they've played decent defense or good defense. Whereas Dallas is a front-running team. If they get a lead and they're able to just pin the ears back on defense, and Dak has minimal pressure on him and can relax in the pocket, make good throws, they win. And when they can't get that lead or they get punched in the mouth early, they're playing from behind. Dak is a terrible quarterback. He has a bad record against winning teams, whereas Jalen Hurts has a very good record against winning teams. And if you look at playmakers across the field, Philly overall has the better roster, has more top players. So, with all that being said, I have to take Philly in this one. They're the home team. I think they are the better team. I think overall, I think they're the better coached team. And I think they're the more gritty team. I think they will win both sides of the line of scrimmage, which is important in big games. And as I said earlier in the week, I'm not bought in on Dallas. I know they've played good against bad teams. They have not played good against good teams. And it's kind of like a pattern with them. And even if Dallas goes out and wins this game, I'm not 100% bought in after that unless they go out. Like if Dallas comes out and gets down by 10 points early in this game and then they fight, play extremely well, get back in, take the lead late and win, then I might buy into Dallas. Like that's a situation that I need to see Dallas. I need them to play a good team, be behind, play from behind, play well from behind, come back and win. That's what I need to see. And this is a good chance for them to do that today against a very good opponent. If they do that, it changes the whole conversation around Dallas. Uh, if they play with the lead, it's more about Philly not playing good than Dallas necessarily playing good. Because I mean it's going to go back to the San Francisco game. They got down early and they never could get back in. I need to see that with Dallas because in the playoffs and if you happen to make the Super Bowl against some of these great AFC teams, you could be playing from behind, and I need to see Dallas play from behind and play well. Philly played from behind a lot last week against Washington. They it was a dogfight, and they come back. They stayed in it. They played well. They got the lead late. They held on to it. I need to see that with Dallas. That's what I need to see. But all that being said, I got Philly winning this game. I think it was a very smart move by Philly. I mean, so everybody knows they're great at the brotherly shove. Well, last week they ran a fake off the brotherly shove where they lined up and it was 100% brotherly shove, 3rd and 2, they're doing it, and they snap the ball and they turn and give it to the running back and he takes the edge in for a touchdown. I think that was a smart move by showing that last week. I mean, I don't. It would have been smart to do it today against Dallas if that was the first time you show it because you would catch them extremely off guard. But showing it last week and now you're going into this game against Dallas, they're not going to know what you're doing now. That you've shown that you can run a fake off that and be successful. And now every time you line up for that, it's going to be in the back of their head of is this the fake or is this the real deal? Like what are we doing? And you're going to cause some hesitation on some of those players, and you stress that defense, and you could run a fake to either side because you have a running back on both sides of Hurts. Like you really have the option to do this a lot of different ways now that you've shown you can run a fake off of it, and that's a great move by Philly. It's already a great play for Philly, and now that you're showing different looks and different options off of it, extremely smart football. But again, all that being said, I got Philly winning. Sunday Night Football, we have Buffalo on the road against Cincinnati. Obviously, this game has gotten a lot of attention because of what happened when these two teams played last year, or they really didn't play. They played half a quarter before the Damar Hamlin incident. But barring any incidents today, um, Cincinnati's been on a hot streak. Joe Burrow is back. He's healthy. He's running the ball. He's moving in the pocket. He's lighting defenses up. Buffalo's played some shaky football. They won last week, kind of got back on track, I believe. Played pretty well, but ultimately, I think Cincinnati's the better team right now, and I think Cincinnati will win this game. They're at home. Um, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a good game, but I think Cincinnati will win. I think that'll be a great end for the Sunday after the Philly game. Um, but yeah, I feel like Cincinnati's going to pull that win. And lastly, Monday Night Football, we have the LA Chargers on the road against the New York Jets. The Chargers are favorites, but it's a home game for the Jets. It's Monday Night Football for the Jets. They've they've got a little momentum. They didn't play particularly well last week, but they pulled the win out. And I think the weaknesses of the Chargers are kind of some strengths for the Jets. And I think the Jets are going to pull the upset and win and keep themselves in playoff contention. Aaron Rodgers was on the field last week taking some dropbacks and transferring weight onto that torn Achilles that he had, throwing the football. So, provided he continues to improve and make good strides in his rehab and his recovery, it's possible we could see him back this year. And I think the more he's been around the team, the more invigorated they are. And I think they're fired up for the possibility of getting him back. I think they're trying to rally on that. And I think they're going to win this game and try to keep themselves in contention to get Rodgers back. And I think if he ends up getting back on the field this year and they can make a run to the playoffs, it's going to be a phenomenal story. So I think the Jets win that game. So those are my picks for today. We have 4 teams on a bye. Detroit is one. I forget the other 3, but 4 teams on a bye, so we only have 14 games this week. Went 12-4 last week. My total coming into this week is 78-43, almost back to that 66% mark. Hopefully today we can cross that threshold and start getting back to towards the 70% mark. I picked Pittsburgh Thursday night, and hopefully I can pull some wins today. So all that being said, I hope your teams win today, unless you're a Rams fan. I hope they lose. And I hope you enjoy some Sunday football. And I'm going to get off here and go enjoy some Kansas City, Miami. Have a good one.